Hey everybody, welcome back to QEDTalks. I got someone new nerdlet here today. I have Spiggs18, aka Anthony here, from CypherUnlimited as well as Life itself. And go ahead, hey, introduce yourself a little bit. Who is Spiggs18, Anthony, whatever you want to be called?
First of all, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. This is awesome. Anytime I get a chance to talk gaming with another awesome person is, highlight of my day. So thank you so much for having me. And I'm just a regular guy that games, that happens to love Monte Cook Games, and we have a pretty decent sized Discord server dedicated to all things MCG, and we have a variety show on Twitch and also a YouTube channel where we interview people in the gaming industry. We do actual plays, and there's 3 of us, and we BS about gaming, and we give our opinions, because we're all very opinionated on different gaming topics, and we have a good time on camera.
Feel free to look down below. You'll be able to find like the Twitters and the Twitches and the YouTubes and all of the stuff. And it wasn't that long ago, I was on their show, so you're going to want to check it out.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, it was a really good time. So it was like stupid amount of fun. I loved it. So one thing I like, some of the people I've interviewed in the past on this so far, I kind of already knew for the most part. So I didn't ask them, where did your like online handle name like come from? Because I already knew where theirs came from.
This is actually a funny and sad story at the same time. I grew up in South Jamaica, Queens, New York City, which is I'm my nationality. I'm Latino. I'm Puerto Rican. And I grew up in South Jamaica, Queens, which is a predominantly Hispanic and African American community. And I started gaming in the '80s, so D&D was not very popular in our in the neighborhood we grew up in. So we would, we had a close knit group of gamers, right? Mm-hmm. That we would have to travel into Manhattan, into like the big gaming spaces in order for us to play D&D. This was the early 80s. And my name is a mix of 2 derogatory terms that I would rather not say. Oh. One towards Latino people and one towards African American. Oh. And the reason why it's that mix is because we went to this, once again, I don't want to name the store because it still currently exists, but there used to be like 9 or 10 of us that were all Spanish and black, and we would, go into these predominantly white gaming spaces. And we had a great session. We thought, we literally traveled an hour and a half on train to go play this D&D. This was a D&D time. And our heart was totally broken because we were outside like after the session, and our GM basically, we saw him talking to another one of his friends, and they would say, "Who were you running for?" And he said, "I ran for this S word and those N words." Ooh. So on the train ride home, since I was the only Spanish person in the group, as a joke, they were saying, "Hey, you're the S word who hangs with the N words," and they fused the 2 words together, and that name stuck. It's been a name.
So even though it's got like sort of a bad origin, it's also kind of a badge of pride because you're like fighting, like it's your way to make fun of this dude that was like obviously not a good dude. Yeah. I like that. It's got a story to it.
Which was really sad because we actually had a great time. We were like literally like maybe 10 feet away from him. We were 13. We were high-fiving each other, talking about all the great adventures we went through, all the great things we did in the campaign. And for us to hear that was kind of demoralizing, to be honest. Yeah. But it also encouraged us to start taking the GM mantle at the time, because none of us were GMs at the time. Mm. So, when we got back to our neighborhood, we started, purchasing the books ourselves and teaching ourselves how to GM.
Yeah, you're just like, I've had enough of these ass hats. Let's do our own thing with blackjack and hookers, and it's gonna be better.
Yeah. So yeah, pretty much. So Yeah, my name is weird. Every time I tell someone the story and they ask how I get my name, it's I always get weird reactions, but that's essentially what it was.
Yeah, I can see why you stuck with it, despite like what the connotations of the words are. It comes from a place of just sort of like F you to like the bad people, and I kind of like that.
Yeah,
it's good. It's good. Hey, Storebringer, welcome into the chat. If any of the people that have been in here, I see the number of you in here so far, have any questions that you're going to want me to ask him at any point, feel free to put them in the chat. He's so used to getting other people on his show that you're asking questions about. Maybe he doesn't get grilled enough. So feel free. If you got questions for this guy, let's get those questions out.
It's totally foreign to me. I'm usually on the other side. I'm the one controlling the conversation, so it feels a little awkward. I'm sure.
Yeah, you're like I'm so prepared with questions, and now you're like, shit, what is he gonna ask me?
Yeah, I'm the one usually writing the show notes, so it's good to be on the other side of the table, to be honest.
And then you got some random nerdlet from Cypher being like, you want to come on my show this time? So yeah, it's pretty good. So let's go back into the history a little bit. How I like these. I have these baseline questions that generally ask a lot of the people. So how did you first hear about RPGs in general? Like even before you started playing, how did you first hear about them?
Mr. Feimer, he was my 7th grade English teacher. He had gave us The Hobbit by J.R. Tolkien, and a couple of us in the class fell in love with the book. We actually memorized it, and we used to recite passages from The Hobbit all the time. And he saw that there was a group of kids that actually took to The Hobbit, so of course he gave us Lord of the Rings, and we devoured that. And then he said, hey, if you really like fantasy, there's this game called D&D you should try. And he actually gave us our first box set. He went, Mr. Feimer, you're an awesome teacher. If you're listening, I would love to find this man, because he absolutely changed our lives. He went out and bought us the box set, the red box.
Oh man!
And we started playing that, and of course we were getting the rules all wrong. And then this was the 80s, so there wasn't, the internet wasn't as readily available. So we would look up stores and find little hobby shops. So we had the red box and then a bunch of random other books, like whatever we could find. We would, like, somebody would save up some money and buy a book. So we had like the red box Oriental Adventures from AD&D, just random books, and we would try to make games out of that.
Kind of like mash it all together.
Yeah. So then we started traveling the stores. We started traveling outside of our neighborhood and finding stores where they were doing organized play at the time. And then we learned, oh, hey, this is actually this. There's strict rules to this. And then after that, we just started, gaming. And then from there, I quickly ran into GURPS and, Traveler and Palladium games. I started playing, absorbing any RPG I could find. And, the rest is history.
Yeah, I feel like everyone from sort of like our-ish generation kind of has this like a similar like RPG origin story. Like my aunt had the red box set and kicking around. I don't know why, because it's like she never used it. She kind of like bought it in her like young 20s or whatever, and she just kind of like gave it to me. I was like 10 or 11, and so I was like, this is really cool. I guess I gotta make some friends now. And yeah, like we all kind of just piecemeal. Like my first D&D book that I got myself wasn't even the player's handbook. It was like the complete book of elves. Like we all just like spent money on different books. Yeah.
Our first book was the Oriental Adventures book and the red box. And we were like, how did you even mesh?
It was a different time back then.
Yeah, that was good. I made my bones in AD&D in 2nd edition, so that edition always holds a special place in my heart.
Yeah, like AD&D 2nd edition, I would never run a game of it again. It is a hot mess, but I have so many fond memories of things that happened. But yeah, it's a hot mess. Yeah, it's Drew Penn's even like saying, "Don't make me come out there and make you roll versus petrification or polymorph." Yep. No random shit.
We just said the same shit about Palladium games too, because I know you have a love for rifts. I had a massive love for rifts.
I have a love for the setting of rifts, not the rules. No. Oh my god.
That was a definition of a hot mess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kevin Sambidia, if you ever see this, you've had some good ideas, but please get an editor. It's like someone willing and able to stand up to you like a court gesture or something to be like, your idea sucks. Just to like trim that shit down.
CypherUnlimited came from Heroes Unlimited. That's where I had a if you watch any of our videos, you know all three of us love superhero RPGs, and I was a big fan of Heroes Unlimited. So, you know, when we were thinking up of names, you know, before we even got started, Heroes Unlimited, we added Cypher to it.
In between all the like superhero RPGs in the past, Heroes Unlimited is probably the one I played the most. Like Marvel's was pretty good, but Heroes Unlimited is the one we played the most for sure.
Yeah, I was always a sucker for Universal Systems for some reason. Like,
Me too.
you know, I'm not the biggest GURPS fan, but I played a ton of it. Yeah, there's just something about, you know, one system to tell any story you wanted that I was always attracted to.
Yeah, me too.
And why, I guess why we got so attracted to Cypher System in the first place.
So, getting on to the next question here. I sadly had all my dice stolen at one point in my life. So I basically lost all of my original dice back from when I started and stuff. However, it looks like you may still have your original D20. Tell me, is El Diablo still kicking around?
Yes, El Diablo. I've had that dice since I was 13, and I pull it out whenever I need a 20, because I shit you not, I don't know what's up with this dice, but this is the dice that if I roll it, it's going to roll anywhere between a 15 to 20 and nothing else. So that, I mean, I don't have it near me because I have a ton of dice, but it's somewhere in my dice stash. It's just a clear red die that I had from the first dice set I ever bought. Actually, my brother bought me that dice set for my birthday, for my 13th birthday, and I don't have the rest of the dice. I just have the 20. But yeah, El Diablo is still alive and kicking.
I mean, all role players, I think, to a degree, are dice goblins. That's just the way we are. Aside from El Diablo, which, like, yes, I trolled all the way back to the beginning of your Twitter feed to find that one. Do you have any other favorite Click-Clack Math Rocks that you really like aside from that one?
Yeah, I do actually. The first Gen Con I went with Al and Dean from CypherUnlimited. Al bought me a pair of Pride dice that are just so beautiful. I should have pulled those out. I should have had those near me, but I just love the way they roll. They feel like great in your hand, and it's like the rainbow colored dice, but it has like these specks on it, and I just love those dice. Those are my con dice.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a good month to bring them out too, eh? It's that time for it.
Yeah, it's a great set of dice. I love those. I usually keep it in my con bag, and yeah, those are the dice I usually play with at cons.
So you
El Diablo for when I need a special roll.
El Diablo. Yeah, I was like going through your old Twitter feed. And I'm like, what stuff can I get up from him? And like, what can I dig up from his past? Did he say anything bad? Let's cancel him. And then unfortunately, nothing bad. He seems squeaky clean. But then I saw the things about the dice and stuff.
I'm pretty liberal.
So
I could get canceled in some circles for being liberal, but I'm pretty liberal about that.
I think you're safe with most role players. I think most RP, maybe not all, maybe there's like the conservative right-wing Christian RPG group out there, who knows? But I think you're probably safe for the most part. So you like me, like you're like open universal games where you can sort of like shift from genre to genre. To me, it's partly because I don't like to be shackled to a specific play style, but it's also partly because I get a little bit of like game ADD sometimes. I'll be like, I'll run one for a while and then I'll be like, ooh, shiny, you know, like go run a, like want to run a different thing. Do you have like a preferred style or maybe genre of play that you do like to aim towards?
My preferred genre, I think what I run the best is probably horror. I like scaring the shit out of people. Or horror suspense. I like the, you know, I'm a big fan of, I like a lot of the 70s and 80s horror. You know, and I like a lot of the Rod Sterling Twilight Zone style games. So that would be my preferred genre. And my preferred play style is definitely cinematic. You know, don't get me wrong. I enjoy as a player the crunch and you know having rules and min-maxing, but as a GM I prefer to run more of a loose cinematic style. So instead of telling a novel-like tale, I'm telling a film-like tale.
Yeah, I like that too. Little, not necessarily over the top, but like it's and not necessarily even action, but just like big. It's big. It's important. The PCs feel like there's something. Like, yeah, I get that. It's a good feeling.
And also like just you could when you deal more in cinematic style, you could hand weave a lot of the stuff that it tends to bog down a session, worrying about the little minutia of am I flanking this correctly, or you know what I mean? No. In the cinematic style you could kind of like bypass that a little bit, and it's the rule of cool. If it looks cool, sounds cool, we should be going in that direction.
I would say focus on the important bits. Like I always bring up the one example because like everyone knows Lord of the Rings these days. If you don't know the movie or the books, at least you know the movies. So like if you look at the movies, in their first movie, they're in the Mines of Moria. Do we spend 3 days in there with them seeing every twist and turn? No. We only see the cool bits. We see when they at the doorway. We see them get stuck at the fork in the path. We see them, with the encounter with the Balrog and losing Gandalf and stuff like that. We only see the cool bits. All the other boring shit. Do you really need it? Like, yes, cinematic.
Also, if you think about it from the GM's perspective, right? If you're running more of a cinematic style, your scene transitions could be a lot quicker and cleaner because we're not bogging down on counting arrows, or you could just zoom, like just as a descriptor, as you describing things, you could view it from the lens of a camera. Like the camera's panning down on the inn as your guys finish your meal, and you get up and then the NPC comes and talks, instead of, hey, what I'm ordering, how many gold and copper pieces do I have, which we grew up at AD&D. That was part of the gaming. It's just that I'm in my 40s now. I don't want to bother with any of that stuff.
I ain't got time for that shit.
Yeah, even though I don't mind as a player, but as a GM, it's just not my preferred style.
Yeah, as a player, I think I'm sometimes a GM's nightmare, but sometimes I'm a GM's wet dream as well, because my notes are meticulous. I especially love to play things like Wizards and stuff like that in D&D. So like, I'll have like pages of like pre-prepared like spell books and notes and things like this. Like everyone else at the table, you see like they may have jotted a name down or something. And I've got a fucking journal of like minutes. Like,
I don't know if you've seen any of our stuff, but I'm the napkin GM.
Yeah, you're the Well, funny enough, I take a billion times more notes as a player than I do as a DM. As a DM, I might have like a small sheet of bullet points. As a player, because like I don't know how much work the GM has put into it. As a player, I tend to have way more notes.
Yeah, I try. Yeah, I'm definitely better with my note taking as a player than I am as a GM.
Now, do you prefer being a player, or do you prefer being like in the GM seat?
I actually don't mind either. I there's some points in time where I just want to be a player, and then there's other times when I have an inspiration and there's a story I want to tell, and then like I'm just like hyper focused on that one thing, like Dean, Alpha Dean, who's one of the 3 of CypherUnlimited. He wrote a supplement on wuxia martial arts styles for Cypher System, and I was so fascinated, because I was proofreading it for him, and I was playtesting it for him, and I was so fascinated with with the work he did. I was like hyper focused. I'm just gonna run one Shaw kung fu style games
That sounds
for
awesome.
like a month and a half, and we streamed an episode called Burning a Red Lotus Temple that I ran. That was I think was a fantastic game. It was a ton of fun. Where I essentially just took all these great one Shaw movies that I grew up watching and fused them into one story. And so I usually have to get inspired, but once I do have that inspiration bug, then that's all I'm doing for a month and a half, and then I'll go back to being a player.
Yeah, I get that as well. I think I generally prefer being in the player's seat because I have so many things and I'm willing to like set the games up and stuff. But yeah, every once in a while you're just like, guys, can someone just run something? Please.
I don't have that problem, to be honest. We have over 4,000 members on our Discord, so there's always games being played. So if I really want to scratch that itch, I'm just a quick click away from saying, hey, anybody running something today? And I can definitely find a game.
So Cypher, I think you've heard of this system. It seems to be your preferred system these days. It's a lot of people preferred systems these days. I know it kind of is to me. What is it about Cypher System you think that is the big draw for you? Like, why is Cypher System standing out for you compared to a lot of other systems right now?
From the GM perspective, is ease of prep, dude. That is the number one. Like, I was always a napkin GM, but my napkin used to be extremely full of like micro notes. Now with Cypher System, I'm literally the napkin GM because pretty much, 90% of it could be either hand waved, like the NPCs, the baddies, story structure when designing a session boils down to knowing 3 rules. And if you know those 3 rules, like if you know effort and edge, you know how to assign a target number and how does damage work, then you could pretty much improv everything on the fly. So from a GM perspective, it's absolutely the almost very, very little to minimal prep to run a session. So that hooked me from there. And from a play, I just love the character sentence and the way that in Cypher System, right, if we put it in D&D terms, you could have a party of 4 rangers that all appear drastically different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I just like it as a player too, because we could have, no matter what the setting is, and by Monte Cook Games, we could have 4 explorers, and all 4 of the characters are going to be entirely different, play different, act different, have different abilities, and I just think that's unique.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that the descriptive sentence does for me is in D&D I find you get a lot of players that this is what my character is. Whereas in Cypher or Fate as well, which is also a system I really, really like, you get players say this is who my character is, not what my character is. And I think it's a very big difference when they reach that step.
I also think that you just made me think. I also think it's worth mentioning that Fate and Cypher both fall in this character, but at tier 1 or beginning of the game, you're a competent character, so you can tell like a slightly bigger story than you can in say D&D or Pathfinder at first level. At tier 1 in Cypher System, you're essentially around maybe like you might be level 3 or between 2 and 3 as a tier 1 character if we were comparing the two. Yeah. You're slightly more competent. So the stories that you could tell out the gate or could be a little bit grander than what you're not fighting rats in the basement like you would in a level 1 character first session.
And even if you did want to do that, there's plenty of ways to do that. Like I've got a set of rules for like a tier 0 that my group uses that like if you wanted to do that and then maybe do like a fast forward like 10 years later and then suddenly you're tier 1 now, like you could do that. Maybe you do tier 0 as the pieces as children, like mix them together. Like There's so many ways you can do things.
Yeah, they actually have rules for that. If you have unmasked, you essentially playing a tier 0 character at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? With the young descriptor and stuff like that. So they actually have rules for those that want, the mechanical rule of how to do that as well.
Unmasked is that's like the one book I haven't picked up yet. I have Claimed the Sky, but I don't actually have Unmasked yet.
Yeah. So essentially supernatural horror and supers fused together. It's a really cool setting.
It's like the one thing I don't own. I guess that's my next pickup. I have like everything else.
It's pre-revised Cypher System though. So some of the rules are slightly different, but it'll work just as fine with the revised book.
There wasn't a lot I found, like for anyone like so confused on that. There's the Cypher System and then the revised Cypher System rules. Honestly, for the most part, they're not that much different. The revised book is more about organizing things and putting it up a bit and stuff.
It's more character creation.
Yeah.
The difference is more in character creation than it is in the actual core rules of the game. The core rules of the game are pretty much the same.
The organization of the book, like separating where the abilities are versus actually the lists for the abilities and like the foci and stuff, just well done. They really thought that one out. It was good shit.
Yeah, they killed it.
So CypherUnlimited is obviously kind of a booming community right now. For anyone looking for the best support for not just Cypher, but basically good advice on RPGs or people to talk to. I've been enjoying the shit out of the place. It's been absolutely brilliant. I really appreciate it. So let's go back in history for a moment. How did CypherUnlimited first get its start? Where did this come from?
It was me and Al. We were on Roll20 message boards, right? And me and Al started. That's Ancient Albatross on the server and on the videos. Dean came a little bit later, but me and Al, we were on Roll20, and we were like the kooky one-shot guys on Roll20. We were, we were running a lot of. We ran like Power Rangers and. Scooby-Doo and stuff like that. We were running like these crazy kooky one-shots using Cypher System. And we were advertising it on, I forgot the old Google, Facebook equivalent. What was that called?
Yeah, it wasn't Google Plus, was it? No, it was...
it was something like, I forgot the name of it, but we were advertising on that. So we were getting a little bit of a following, and we were on quite a few other Discord servers, and we were known as the Cypher guys on whatever, we were on the Discord servers that were dedicated to, every RPG. Mm-hmm. And we had a couple channels on 3 or 4 different Discord servers that we weren't running. And everywhere we went, we were known as the kooky one-shot Cypher guys. We would teach people Cypher System. So then Al came up with the idea, we should do our own Discord server dedicated to, Cypher System. So we did that, and we had about maybe 20, 25 people. Tops, we had about 50. And the Darcy Ross, who was the former community relations coordinator, somehow found us from a Reddit post where we were posting people. And she contacted us and was like, hey, what you guys are doing is, it's great. You think I could talk to you? And she spoke to us and she interviewed us on the MCG website 5 years ago. And I shit you not, we went from 50 people to 800 over the course of a month.
Oh shit.
And then we started, conversing a lot with Darcy. And then she was she's also the reason why we have a YouTube and Twitch channel, because she told us, hey, you guys are really funny, because we're not the typical gamers. We have the heavy New York accents and we curse a lot. We're very opinionated. She was like, you guys are funny. You should do a YouTube channel. And at the time, she had her own Cypher System YouTube channel, and she was doing not necessarily interviews but walkthroughs and stuff. She was like, oh, you should get in this space. So then me and Al started producing content, and I met Dean through the Discord server, and Dean became like my older brother that I love to argue with. We like bump heads all the time, but he's a phenomenal GM and an even better person. And yeah, the three of us just started making videos, and the rest is history. We started interviewing people, and from there I think we got to interview Monte Cook because Darcy hooked us up with the MCG team.
That's awesome.
And the channel just started growing. The Discord server started growing, and now we have over 4,000 members, and we're very inclusive, and we tend to weed out anyone that doesn't have that same mindset, that isn't accepting of all people. Since the three of us came from a minority gaming space, we want to make sure that everyone has an equal opportunity to enjoy games, talk about games, willing to run games regardless of where you come from, who you are, how do you identify yourself. Everyone is welcome.
That's the important thing to I think a lot, not all unfortunately, but a lot of RPG spaces these days is inclusivity. If you're pretending to be an elf in a game, does it matter what you are in real life or who you are in real life? You just want to hang out with friends and just play, roll some dice and have fun. It doesn't matter. Oh, there's some bad people out there.
I don't know. In New York, we have a saying, you can't hate the haters. Haters are gonna hate. So
yeah.
It is what it is. I can't get mad at someone I can get mad at someone, but it's gonna be a waste of time if they don't want to grow and expand their thought process. And early gaming consisted of a lot of gates, and some people just never learn to open those gates and let everyone in. And if that's the mindset, that's fine. You could have your own community, and you could stay in that space, but our space is going to be open to everyone. Our space is going to be about the games and the story people are telling. Nothing. We have one rule, and it applies to us as well. Like I said earlier, I'm very liberal with my politics, but we have zero politics on our server.
Yeah.
And it's not because I feel like if we open the door for my opinions, then I have to open the door for opinions I don't agree with. So I'd rather have no opinions at all, to be honest.
There are other places for that. This is not. Yeah. We've got our focus. That's the important bit. I think I've just gotten. In real life before online stuff and everything, I think I've just gotten lucky over the years because we've always had very inclusive games of people of all different ethnicities and spectrums and orientations, and maybe it's just because where I am within the Great White North of Canada, I just got lucky. We didn't have as many issues with that, but as soon as when Roll20 was first a thing, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. And as soon as I started doing online games, I'm like, there's a dumpster fire of people out here. It was culture shock.
It's sad and funny at the same time. But you are not wrong.
But there's still for every one or two shitty gatekeeper person, there's a legion of awesome people on the CypherUnlimited, or I'm part of the Friendos community, which also there will be links for that down below, which is just amazing people. We filter out the bad. It's we got awesome bad people filters, and then we just and we just it's just peace, acceptance, love, and have some fun. Throw some click-clack math rocks. It's the important thing, right? I've been trapped in this bubble of CypherUnlimited, so I rarely see the toxicity anymore because I usually stay within my community, right? But we did a video when Shauna Germain and Sean K. Reynolds wrote the cassette and gaming document, and that's when I was like, oh yeah, you're right, there are some assholes out there, because we were getting such hate. I don't get that one.
And all we would say, here's the thing I don't understand about the toxicity, and maybe I'm going off topic, but why does if anyone can answer this question for me, it's the $1 million question, but why does anyone care what someone else does at their table where you're not present of? why is there such hate for the X card or cassette and document gaming? If that's not for you and your friends and your home group, then don't use it. Why do you have to spend the time to go online and call everyone stupid or call everyone a snowflake because they prefer to use something that you're not using? I never understood that.
I think this is like the closest thing to gaming nerds these days are trying to get to politics. But yeah, it's like, I mean, you're just making a comfortable environment. That's it. You're not hurting anybody. You're just trying to make sure everyone's having a good time. Like, what is wrong with that?
You're not there. It's not your table. Like, why do you even care?
Yeah, I think I mentioned that on when I was on your guys' show as well about the whole like consent and inclusivity, like all of that stuff. And I'm like, I don't get it. It's not that big of a deal. It's just seeing what people are comfortable with. It's just putting into paper so you can organize your thoughts better. The conversations that really most people, a lot of us have already been having with our players for years, or should have been remembering to do with our players for years. Yeah.
And also, if you come to think of, I think that like the most important aspect of GMing is to make sure the players have fun. I mean, I would like to think that that's the ultimate goal. So why wouldn't you want to know how to maximize the fun for your players? The consent document essentially does that because it tells you what your players will not enjoy. Right? So why would you want to not know that information beforehand?
And like, you don't always, it depends on the situation. You don't always have to use like the actual like form document. If it's people you don't know, then I actually would suggest maybe doing it and like allow it to be anonymous, like people feel more comfortable and stuff. But if you're in a home game and it's with a bunch of friends, even people you've played with for years, at least sort of like verbally go through some stuff, talk with them, go through some of the checks just like as a conversation, because I've had it before where like I've played with people for like a decade. And then I finally sat down and when, you know what, like I've never checked on you with like such and such topic. How are you feeling about this? And they're like, hey, could we stay away from that? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm sorry. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Like the whole argument of, I need to tell first of all, there's nothing wrong, and I say this all the time too, there's nothing wrong with if you have a specific story to tell, right? Like you want to tell a story about giant spiders, right? And that's the story that you planned out in your head, and you have this great, 3-session arc of this narrative that you want to tell about these giant spiders, and someone says, hey, spiders are my trigger. Right? There's nothing wrong, and I tell that with everyone that wants to be a naysayer about the cassette and gaming document. There's nothing wrong with the GM saying, hey, look, this story's about giant spiders. We could play another game, but for this particular story, I have to use giant spiders. There's nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. There's nowhere in the document that says that the GM still can't tell the story that they want to tell. All the document is there to provide the GM and the players information on what triggers them and what each individual person doesn't find enjoyment in. So there's nothing that says, like, I was like, where in the document does it says that you can't tell a player that you have to use this because this is what your narrative is about? Now the player can decide, hey, I'll sit out this session and I'll play the next game. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. No, it's the game. It's for everyone at the table, and everyone, not just the GM. Everyone sometimes has to make compromises. Everyone has to be understanding. It's a group effort.
Yeah,
for sure.
Open discussion.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got a ton of hate on that. I still don't understand why.
So with everyone being stuck at home during this great panorama that hit us in 2020 and on, I imagine like a lot of us, you've probably delved even heavier into online play than you probably even have in the past. In your experience, what are kind of some of the pros and cons of like the online world versus the in-person, like at home table?
I tell this to a lot of new GMs. I say, you're in the golden age of gaming right now, because if you're using a VTT, and I know you absolutely do, and I'm still going to hold you to showing me a couple of tips and tricks, because I'm still an old grognard that uses Roll20. But as a GM, you don't have to be as descriptive if you could find a perfect image. I tell this to all new GMs that are running online. If being descriptive on your scenes isn't your thing, or you're not as good, if you find good enough images, you could say, hey, it looks like this, press a button.
Yeah.
This store looks like this, and you press a button, and now that becomes the canon of whatever it is you're describing. I think that's a tip that's totally understated. People tend to not want to use it. I love using images, and I love using like music. At a table, yeah, you could do all those things. It's just a little more work. Online, it's a click of a button.
Yeah, I like, even at my table, I always had a TV behind me, or at least over a few years before, like I'd say from 2014, 15 on, and I would show that stuff, but it's like players maybe would have a hard time seeing it, or they'd be at the wrong angle. Like it's not the same thing as online, where like everyone suddenly has it pop it up in their face and you can see it. Like recently, I'm running my Numenera campaign. They're in the Caecilian jungle for the Numenera geeks out there, and they got to the Le Temple du Frog, and I'm like, all right, and here's what it looks like, and like Monte Cook Games like has a picture of the Frog Temple in Numenera, so I just showed them the picture. I'm like, yep, there you go. That's it.
And I guess the other obvious benefit is that I could play with people around the world, and we could. I've gotten the great joy, the great luck to game with people from China, Australia, England, Canada. People I would normally not get to game with, I can online with. So it's it's. I guess that's another great benefit. I think that's probably should be benefit number one. You get to game with people that you wouldn't normally game with.
What do you think are some downfalls of it, though? Do you think are there any downfalls to the online versus?
Absolutely is. It's a lot easier to read a table in person than it is online, even with cameras. I also think that online, I don't know if this makes any sense, but you have to be more a captivating style GM, especially if you're playing with strangers, because they have more opportunity to be distracted. And I run right now. My gaming consists of my personal games consist of online only, and my in-person games consist of running games at cons for MCG. So those are like my two worlds of gaming right now, right? Yeah. And I notice online, my scene transitions have to be a lot more crisp. Because I have to captivate and hold that audience. Mm-hmm. So you have to move from scene to scene quicker, if that makes any sense, because they're in front of their computer, they have access to their phone, they have, like me, I have 3 monitors, I can be on ESPN seeing what the hockey game score is if I really wanted to, you know? So you actually have to captivate your table a lot more than you do in person, because in person, especially if you're playing with strangers, people tend not to want to be rude, so they're going to at least pay some attention to what you're saying. But online, they just have so many avenues for which them not to pay attention. So you actually, I think, I could be wrong on this, but I personally think that you have to be a stronger GM online than you do in person. I
can really say that. I hadn't really fully thought about that, but yeah, you're competing a little bit more for their attention, especially for people like me. Like I'm in my 30s, although not for too much longer, I guess. So like still, I guess I'm technically in the millennial category, but like, yeah, we get sidetracked a little easier. I'm good at the focus, but like people like my girlfriend who cannot. Like we have to like put her phone away and like just focus. Blinders. Here's horse blinders. Go. Like
everyone's guilty of it, and it happens. Mm-hmm. But the opportunity for it to happen is a lot more prevalent online. So, like I also think that's why Cypher System works well. Like Cypher System Fate, those less crunchier systems, in my opinion, even though VTTs handle crunchier systems better because there's more bells and whistles to control mechanics, but the cinematic style games are a lot better online because it's easier to do scene transitions. It's easier to go from one scene to another when you don't have a lot of rules. So it's easier to hold the attention of the audience that way.
In a way, I actually think for the crunchier system is online, I actually think all those bells and whistles are to our detriment. Because I have recently been running a bunch of games for the Friendos community, and I initially started by saying, hey, who hasn't played a D&D game before? Come on in. I'm going to teach you. But the problem is, even after running, say, like a 10 to 15 session, like short mini campaign or whatever, they still have no idea how any of the rules work because the VTT did all of it. So they have no idea how their character worked. So for Fate and like Cypher and stuff, it's not as big of a deal because there's not as many rules. But for like D&D, they don't know how it worked.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. Because I'm not gonna lie, I haven't run D&D since Heart of the Dragon Queen, maybe.
Okay, yeah.
I've played a couple of sessions because I still love 5e. I think 5e is a phenomenal system. I just like I'll be a player. I don't want to GM any.
It's same thing with
Pathfinder. I love Pathfinder 2 as a player. I just don't want to run it.
Yeah, it's a lot. Well, Pathfinder's even more work. It's just a lot more work.
It's a sweet system. It's really elegant. I love it as a player. I just don't want to run it.
Yeah, it's a lot crunchier. It's still, there's still decent systems. They're also hyper focused on what they are. Like D&D, I see people trying to make D&D like a universal system. But the problem is you need to basically retool and rewrite the entire fucker to do that. Like, why? When there's so many beautiful systems out there you could be using that are either what you want specifically or a universal system, why retool D&D, which already has a focus? It's basically fantasy superheroes.
You know what's funny? Like when you have those discussions on Reddit or or Facebook or on any of our servers, right? You don't want to come across as that guy, that asshole guy that's telling somebody that they're having fun wrong, but you also don't want to be like, dude, like, why are you rewriting Star Wars for D&D when there's a perfectly good Star Wars Fantasy Flight? Or pick up any of the Universal systems that have a space opera supplement that you can easily convert into Star Wars.
Well, I would say
that guy telling them, because I don't think there's a way of having fun wrong, but you're like stuck in a rock and a hard place.
Why is use the butter knife as a screwdriver thing? It's like a butter knife can work as a screwdriver. Is it a great screwdriver? Probably not. You could use a screwdriver set for the different types of screws. But I guess in a pinch you could use a screwdriver. But why would you, or why you'd use a butter knife? But why would you if you have a screwdriver set like right over there?
I also get that from the Cypher System crowd. Like, I understand people want crunch, right? Mm-hmm. But one of the peeves of mine is, I'll have a discussion with someone and they want to add all these rules into Cypher System or Fate. And I was like, the reason why those games are beloved and the reason why they have a core following is because the rules are removed, right? So, I understand you want hit points, right? But hit points doesn't work in Cypher System, or alignment doesn't work in Cypher. There's a reason why it's designed that way, right? So you're gonna alienate the core audience because you want to incorporate the rules from another system into, you have one that's a resource management system, which essentially Cypher System is. So you don't want to add mechanical rules into something that's gonna mess up 8 other rules.
Yeah. Keep it simple. Just Cypher's got the tools that you need. Yeah, there's some modifications and tweaks you can use, but most of the optional rules and tweaks don't add anything. They just change a few core concepts. They don't add a bunch of subsystems, really. So you're a lot more. You phrased it a ton way better than I ever could. But yeah, it doesn't need all those additional subsystems. So with CypherUnlimited, it's obviously, as we talked, getting to be a pretty big community. I think someone mentioned here you're only like around 100-ish people away from 4K, which is getting big. You're getting drunky. You're doing good.
So if anyone watching this wants to join, we spoke. We're gonna have a massive giveaway when we hit 400K with Monte Cook Games, and we're gonna have a ton of books. We purchase a ton of books. We give away. We love to give away not only PDFs. We'll have all the Cypher creator programmers. The people that create content outside of MCG also give us product to give away. We get dice to give away, maps. MCG is super generous when it comes to our giveaways. Last time we had a giveaway, they gave away over 20 books. So please join because I want to do another giveaway.
So you're in, it's a big community now. Tons of people, Facebook, Twitter, all over the place. You've made sure to cover all the social medias, basically. What are some of the biggest challenges you've faced when it comes to managing this maelstrom that is this nerdosphere that resides within Cypher Unlimited?
That's actually a great question, because we have wonderful moderators. We have a dedicated group of 6 wonderful human beings that go well above and beyond what, we don't pay anyone, but they're on the server all the time, ready, willing, and able to help anyone with any questions or want to get in a game. So first and foremost, me, Alan Dean, we don't deserve any of the credit for any of that crap. They do all the work. All the credit goes to them. I think that Cypher System, I think one of the benefits that we've discovered early on is that you eliminate a lot of the toxicity if you focus on one game company. That's the advice that I always get when people ask, how do we notice that your community isn't very toxic. Is because you eliminate addition warring when everyone's in love with the product that the Discord community is about. So we might have disagreements, but the core foundation of their beliefs is the Cypher System or Numenera is still awesome. So, we can agree to disagree about this particular side rule, but we both agree that, so that eliminates a lot of the arguments, to be honest, because when we came from other, we were in other bigger servers than ours that always wound up in addition warring because somebody might love Pathfinder, somebody might love 5e, somebody might love GURPS, and for some reason, us fans, we're very passionate in the geek culture, so we tend to take a slight. If someone doesn't love the same thing we love, it's a slight on us for some reason. But if everyone is there for the same hobby, the same system, we kind of have the little cheat code. We eliminate that a little bit, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. So that kills some of the toxicity. And also is that most people, I like to believe that most human beings at their core want to get along. So we try to encourage that atmosphere to allow everyone to get along.
I'm sure some toxicity has existed, but I personally haven't seen any on Cypher Unlimited, partly because your mods are probably on that shit. And partly just everyone seems to have gotten along. Sometimes people will be like, hey, maybe this rule should be done this way. And I'm like, I disagree, sir. And they'll discuss it.
Another thing why you don't see that is that we also have a rule between our moderators. We never chastise or tell someone they're doing anything wrong in the open chats. It's always private DMs. Mm-hmm. We never, because I just personally, I feel like that just escalates the confrontation even further. So if someone does something that violates our personal policies, they are never told on the server in front of everyone. It's always a private message saying, hey, look, this is derogatory, could you please take this down? Or, we never chastising anyone or trying to escalate the confrontation any further in an open chat.
Yeah, that's a great way to do. You get away from witch hunts, because if you do it in the open chat, people are like, oh, he's doing it wrong. Yeah. Get him. And you'll get everyone will gang up on them and stuff.
Yeah, and we've been around for 5 years and we've only had to boot 4 people.
Wow, that is amazing. I only have a few hundred people on my Discord, and I've had to boot more than that. So that's pretty good.
And there was some people using derogatory words, and then refusing to say they're not going to delete it, and once you get into the stage where you're saying anything that's derogatory towards a race, gender, creed, we have no tolerance for that. No. And you have a one-strike policy, and if you don't want to abide by those rules, then you have no business being in our community in the first place.
And once again, there's no reason that any of that has to be in any role-playing game community. We're all pretending to be like alien creatures or superheroes or some shit. Like, do we really need this real-world bullshit in here too? Yeah.
When you put it that way, it sounds silly, right?
It kind of is, though. Like not what we do, but I mean, like people saying derogatory things. Like at that point, it's silly that they would even bring it up. Like we're too busy playing make-believe.
What's your preferred genre? I answered that question. You didn't tell me yours.
Oh, show me. I'll show you mine. You show me yours type thing. Yeah. For me, sci-fi. I'm a big sci-fi nerd. Especially hard sci-fi.
Oh, hard sci-fi.
Hard sci-fi.
So you Star Trek over Star Wars?
Yeah. I'm too. Yeah. Okay. I guess I would be. I'm not even a huge Star Trek fan, to be perfectly honest. I'm more of a book nerd. Although I've been enjoying Strange New Worlds. That's been loving it. I think that's getting back to the old school thing, to get a little sidetracked for a second. But like Robert Heinlein, Arthur C. Clarke, Isaac Asimov, Greg Bear, like just so many good sci-fi authors, and of course like the Dune series. Everyone knows, especially now, the Dune series. Yeah, sci-fi has always been my jam, especially the hard stuff, because my degree's in engineering and I'm like halfway through a master's in physics, so like got a kind of a nerdy background. So yeah. We gotta bring you on to run us some hard sci-fi on our channel. I love sci-fi with a mild horror element to it. That's like my favorite mix right there.
Yeah, I throw horror in everything. I think that's the one genre that it doesn't matter what the other genres that you attaching it to, it fits in everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. Like I remember running a game. It was called what was it, like Cuddles Goes to Snuggles Mountain or something like that. Everyone played like Happy-Go-Lucky Toys. I don't remember if you remember this like cartoon back in the day. It was called Happy Tree Friends. It was basically like little cuddly cartoons like massacring each other, fountains of blood. Like
it's funny you say that, but I have twin 6-year-olds now, and they actually found that on YouTube, and I had to ban it.
Oh no!
Because I saw my son watching a video, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool. He's doing a magic trick." Oh no, he's cutting the rabbit in half and
yeah,
dragging his entrails.
So what I normally do at the end of the video, because I'm realizing time's slipping on us, I'm actually going to have to cut a few questions here, because we're like most nerds, jibby-jabby, kind of talking a lot. I'm
sorry.
No, I've been doing a lot too. We all do it. Every single video I've recorded, I'm like, oh shit, cutting some questions. So at the end, what I do is I've got a couple of questions that I've gotten from the nerdosphere on the interwebs. Loading up my Netscape, looking for things, stuff like that. And I have got some questions here. I vetted them to make sure they were good first, but I haven't really like thought about them yet. And I figured we'll go through the question and try to answer them together and see if we can figure out some shit here. So we will. I'm gonna roll. I'm gonna roll it randomly if I can get my fucking Christmas tree thingy here. So, let's see here. Roll this one. 7. So this one is from Bombaday08. IGM for a group of high school friends. Oh boy. A few of them are obsessed over homebrew, and I mean obsessed. They almost refuse to play anything official because it's, quote, not fun enough. Their last GM used to just let anything in the campaign fly, but I wanted to try and balance things a little more. Some of the homebrew stuff they find or come up with isn't even remotely balanced because they say it's just more, quote, fun that way. What do I do?
First of all, I was that teenager that frowned upon written adventures, so I definitely understand that point. I'll give you the easiest tip. if you're not comfortable doing homebrew and you still want to do a written adventure, get a written adventure from a different system that you wouldn't think they would know about.
Yes.
And if you're running fantasy, pick up something from 13th Age or something like that.
Dungeon World, go simple.
Yeah, Dungeon World. There's a Dungeon Crawl Classics. There's a ton of different fantasy, and convert that to 5e, and they'll think that it's something entirely new, and you still you don't have to tell them, and you're giving them the homebrew, and you're doing a written adventure at one time.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good piece of advice. Switch it up and just do something very different, and hope that helps switch the gears. To me, also, the other thing is you might want to just sit down as a group. Like, I understand you want to run one thing, but if the rest of the table wants something different, maybe you guys just need to have a sit down and talk about that, because they're at the table too. Like, I realize you're putting in a lot of the work and setting up the game, especially if, like, this is probably D&D, I'm assuming. Yeah. You're putting in a lot of the work, and being D&D, you're putting in a lot of the work. But like, sit down. Like, if the rest of the table just really doesn't want to do that, then, I mean, do you have to shove it down their throats to play a certain way? Or can you convince them, hey, can we just give it a try just for like one short run? Just like give it an honest go. Let's have a hoofarah with it. And then if it doesn't work, cool, we'll go back to something else.
I will say this, though. The 13, 14-year-old me had no idea how much work a GM was putting into their campaigns. I would just show up and thought the magic happened. You know what I mean? So maybe he does have to have that conversation like, hey, I'm doing 3 hours of prep before each game session, because they might literally not know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I would just show up young and dumb with my dice and be like, okay, we're playing.
Now, I want to say most issues at the table are generally just resolved with talk to your players. But if they're 13 or 14, they're legitimately still dumb. So maybe you have to, like, I don't know, like, make little candy treat trails to lead them to the right game. Like, because I was pretty fucking dumb as a teenager. I think we all were. So,
and there's nothing wrong with running homebrew or written. Absolutely nothing wrong either way. You know what I mean? So maybe it's the homebrew. I mean, the written adventures that you've run before are not to their taste. Maybe you could find a written adventure in D&D that they might like, and you can also hack the crap out of that adventure, so it's half homebrew, half written. I've never run a written adventure verbatim, so I don't suggest anyone ever do that.
No, I have a hard time running them in general. I go so off book. Like, at some points, I'm like, I haven't opened this book in like 16 sessions. I don't know. I think his main issue is with like homebrew, like classes and races and stuff like that, by the sounds of it, which is, I mean, your players, maybe you might be wanting to run a different type of game than they want. Like, if they want power and they're overpowered and they want crunchy stuff and they want to quote unquote win, maybe they're looking for a different type of game. Like, if you're a Critical Role fan and you want those touching moments and stuff like that, maybe this isn't your group. Maybe you need to find a different group. These guys just might want to like bust some heads and kill shit.
Everyone doesn't have to play. Me and my brother have totally different gaming styles, and we never play together. And that's fine. That's my brother. I love him. I'll watch hockey or football with him. I just won't RP with him. Yeah, you know? It is what it is.
Yeah, it's okay to find a different group, even if your friends are like in another game, because there's just sometimes it's just not your thing, and that's fine. Like, if you're not having, like, the point of this is to have fun, for everyone at the table to have fun. And if you're not having fun or they're not having fun, then maybe that's just not the mesh. Or maybe you can learn to have fun their way and go a little zany with it. Like, I don't know. You just might take a little... someone's going to either have to give or for a compromise, or you're just going to have to find a different group, really. But in the end, talk to them. At least try to talk to them first. It's always my suggestion. So that was a great... That was Bombaday 08. So if you ever see this Bombaday 08, it looks like I got your question off of Reddit. If you ever see this, which you probably won't, but we'll see. I'll try to notify you on Reddit. Hopefully that'll give you a little bit of insight. You never know. We'll see. Okay, so next one. Let's roll again. So let's roll. I guess a smaller dice now. 4. This is Herb the Llama asks, I run a fairly combat-heavy game. Oh, dude, you should run the other guys' group. I run a fairly combat-heavy game because that is what my players usually like. But they say that the combats are starting to get boring. I try to flavor the campaign to have the main foes be mostly orcs and goblins. So I don't want to change up the types of creatures too often. What can I do to make the orcs and goblins more interesting?
Oh, that's tough. Because you could only put so much lipstick on a pig before everyone recognizes it's a pig. I mean, the first thing I would say is, if we're dealing with D&D, incorporate the environment, add terrain, add elements outside of what the main adversaries are, and make the environment more the combat than the actual creatures themselves. Because that's a quick way of changing what the battle scenario is going to be like without actually changing the stats of the creatures that you're running. So, that's a little improv tip that, most improv GMs use, is if you prepared a certain bad guy and they're either too difficult or too hard, add the terrain into the mix, and it's going to change the whole fight scene entirely. So that would be like the quick off the top of my head advice I would give. Or another bit of advice is, take another creature that's in an existing master manual or whatever, I'm assuming it's D&D, and add some of those abilities on top of the orc, to, maybe give an ability a staff that has lich powers or something like that.
Reskin.
Reskin, because it could I could see why it would be stale if you have a campaign focusing on the orcs and all you're fighting is orcs. I mean, you can't blame the players on that one.
Yeah, one of my videos on my channel, I think talks about this actually. I just say more pots in the stove. I think the example I give is like, what's more interesting? You walk into the room and there's the terrorists and they have guns. Or you walk into the burning building, the terrorists are there. One of them has a hostage with a gun to her head. Behind them is the ticking beep of a bomb. Upstairs you hear footprints. Are they more hostages or are they more terrorists? Like, there's all these elements, and you're like, oh shit, there's a lot going on now. So, yeah, more pots in the stove.
Absolutely true. I love taking random artifacts or random abilities from either a creature or character type abilities and say, how would this be incorporated into this creature? That's like a real easy improv exercise to do, and it doesn't even have to be D&D. Pull it from any game.
Yeah.
And be like, how would this look in D&D? And, if you have orcs, now you have a orc ninja with and you give them some sort of ability you got from a, Mystic China book from Palladium Games.
Yeah.
And, that's how you spice up a character. I mean, that's basically what improv is anyway, when you're improving as a GM. Is pulling shit out of your ass and making it fit into the current game system that you're playing.
We also got some good hints from like the chat here, like Jason saying like use like the MCDM like action oriented, because like Matt Colville, wow, he makes brilliant shit. And like the Flea Mortals books and stuff like that. Like branch out a bit, look at some of like the MCDM stuff. Add different abilities of the monsters. Of course, the best piece of advice here from Drew, the answer is just TPK. Just kill them and move on. Definitely the best way. But yeah, no, just reskin them. Like there's lots of ways to make them interesting, and you don't even have to toughen up the monsters. Look up something called Tucker's Kobolds. If you've never heard of it before, it makes the standard stock kobold, unchanged in stats, scary as all hell to any level party, because it's the fact that it's the traps, the environment, everything that the kobolds are using, not the kobolds themselves. You're very rarely actually fighting the kobolds. You're fighting the bullshit the kobolds have put in your way. That's where they get scary. Goblins could be much the same way. Orcs would be like the shock troops in the front, pestering you while all the traps and BS that the goblins have set up is going off in your face. it's lots of ways to handle this. Yeah, so Herb the Llama, I got you off of Reddit as well by the looks of it, so hopefully you'll see this. I'll try to like ping you on Reddit or something. Hopefully
a common mistake that I think every young GM or early GM makes is repeating. If you focus a story on a specific baddie, you want to always have every scene or every episode involving this baddie, and that's just not the case. It's not, you can't tell a story about orcs and not have every confrontation have to have an orc.
You have to have some contrast. I want to say, even if it's a combat heavy game, maybe have those couple of sessions where it's not as combat heavy, even if they want combat, because it's the difference between noise and music. Like, you got to have some dead space, you got to have some white space, you got to have some contrast, something different than just the same combat, or it's gonna get boring. For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think that is bringing us to the end. So once again, we need everyone to like and subscribe on this channel. And then once I have the links for it, or even if you just want to like go onto the social medias and search for CypherUnlimited, you can find them as well. But like, join all of that stuff. Not only will you find me on there, which is the real draw, but you will find these awesome guys on there as well, and all of the wonderful stuff, including, I don't know if you want to replug maybe your teasers, your giveaways, and all of that. Go, take it away, Spiggs.
Yeah, we do a ton of interviews. We pretty much interview if you're a content creator doing anything with Cypher System. We interview a ton of YouTube channels, like this wonderful gentleman here. We interview a ton of game designers, content creators. We do actual plays. We do a lot of one-shots. We have the largest fan-run Discord server for all things Monte Cook Games. We have a Facebook group, and we have merch and all that this good stuff, but I'm not here to talk about that. Finally, I just want to say thank you so much. This was fantastic. I thought I wouldn't be comfortable on the other side of the table, but it's the exact opposite. This was phenomenal. I love answering the questions. I love BSing with you about gaming. This was just great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Everyone that has been on so far, they like the little personal one-on-one conversation, just chit chat. Honestly, we've struggled to keep it as close to that hour mark as we each time. Like, as it is, we're like at 15 minutes past it. It's whatever.
Yeah, I'm a talker, so
yeah, I think most RPG nerds tend to be.
Yeah.
But thank you everyone for coming out. I think it has been a dynamite stream, and this will be an edited video in the future, so keep tuned, as it will be reposted as the edited video in the future, and then you can give a like and subscribe and all that shit right there as well. All right.